There was something about that night, something quiet, electric, and impossible to name. The house felt different. The air hung heavier, charged, as if it were waiting for something to happen. I couldn't explain it, couldn't trace the moment when things started to shift. But I felt it, deep in my chest, like static just before a storm. Before we dive deeper, take a second to like and subscribe. It means the world and helps us keep sharing stories like this one. He wasn't supposed to matter this much. He was just my late husband's son's best friend, someone who used to come around for dinner, help in the yard, always polite, always quiet. Ethan. That's his name. For years, he'd been a kind presence, gentle, reserved, the kind of boy who blushed when spoken to. I used to tease him for how shy he was. But lately, something had changed. He wasn't the same boy who used to avoid my eyes. He carried himself differently now, like he'd learned the weight of silence. His gaze lingered longer, steadier. And when it did, I felt it like heat tracing over my skin, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. I told myself it was nothing. Just my imagination. But my heart knew better. I noticed him even when I tried not to. I noticed when he laughed too easily, or when he brushed past me in the hallway. I noticed the subtle scent of his cologne when he leaned close to pass a plate across the table. Every accidental touch seemed to linger just a second too long. I started to dread and crave those moments in equal measure. The house was usually full of noise, music, voices, footsteps. But after my husband passed, it became too quiet. My stepson, Daniel, went off to college, and Ethan stayed with me for a while to help with the house. He said he didn't want me to be alone. And maybe that was the start of it, the quiet, the closeness, the way grief can blur boundaries when you're both trying to fill the same empty space. One evening, the three of us were sitting in the living room, me, Daniel, and Ethan. My husband's old record player was spinning something slow and soft. Daniel was reading on the couch beside me, and Ethan sat on the floor, leaning back against the coffee table. I could feel the warmth of him even from a few inches away. It was nothing, I told myself. He was just there. But then he looked up, eyes catching mine with an intensity one hadn't seen before. My pulse tripped. It was a look that lasted half a second too long, enough to make me forget to breathe. I dropped my gaze, heart racing, hoping neither of them noticed. That night, I lay awake replaying that moment. His eyes. The weight of it. The way it said things neither of us dared to voice. When Daniel left for the city a few days later, the house felt different again, too quiet, too intimate. Just the two of us now. I told myself it was fine. Harmless. But I started to notice Ethan more, how he moved through the house with quiet confidence now, how his voice had deepened, how he laughed when I tried to keep things light. The next afternoon, I was in the kitchen, trying to distract myself with dinner prep. The radio played softly in the background. I didn't hear him come in until I felt him behind me. The air shifted. My breath caught. Need help? He asked, his voice low, careful. I smiled without turning around. I've got it, I said, though my hands were trembling slightly. He didn't move. I could feel him standing there, too close, not touching, but near enough that I felt the warmth of him against my back. My thoughts scattered. I could barely remember what I was doing. Then, his hand brushed my arm lightly, like testing gravity. It was innocent enough to deny, but not enough to forget. When I turned to face him, his expression was unreadable, eyes soft, mouth uncertain. Sorry, he murmured, and the way he said it sent a ripple through me. Not guilty. Not nervous. Just quiet. Apologetic in tone, but not in intent. It's okay, I whispered back, though it wasn't. Nothing about this was okay anymore. That evening, I sat alone in the dim glow of the living room. The sound of rain tapped against the windows, rhythmic and steady. My thoughts were a blur of guilt and longing. I told myself to set boundaries, to be smarter, older, wiser. But then I heard footsteps. His. He paused in the doorway. Can we talk? His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. They searched mine like he was asking permission to feel what we both already knew. I didn't answer. Couldn't. He stepped closer. I know this is complicated, he said. But I can't keep pretending. Not after everything. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick between us. My heart hammered, but I didn't move. I should have told him to stop. I should have told him to leave. But the truth was, I didn't want to. Because in that moment, I wasn't his friend's mother's widow. I was just a woman, lonely, flawed, and painfully human. He reached out, but stopped short of touching me, his fingers hovering near mine. You feel it too, he whispered. It wasn't a question. I closed my eyes. There was no denying it anymore. That night, we didn't cross any lines. But we both knew we were standing at the edge of something that could change everything. The silence between us said more than words ever could. And as the rain kept falling outside, I realized that sometimes the hardest part isn't resisting what's forbidden. It's admitting that you want it at all.